So Grand's a counterforce. Technically, he was part of the counterforce, all right? And then this whole 5-page theory of this whole 5-page kind of talks about the 7 grands and against threat to humanity, right? The relationship between a grand and the counterforce, you can't really see it a lot. Like right here, it specifically says some says they have a grand or they have a title or they are a candidate to become a grand, and then some people specifically says unless the beast comes out, we can't really move on our own. We don't know which one where we should kind of go into next, right? Specifically during Shion, Shion specifically explains no. 自分自身の容器の中に込め込っているため、デュークがまだビーストを止めていない。ただ一度も一機もグランドサーバントが現れないのはそのためでしょう。So it says no. When they were talking about Kama, it says, hey, that the sheer fact that within its own shell and its own formality, it didn't have the recognition by the counterforce as a beast because it was hiding inside of its own forgery for the very long time. That the sheer fact that not even one grand servant were to show up was probably the reason why. I guess I should bust this out, huh? Technically, spoilers. Technically, it is LB5 spoilers. Be careful. Make sure you mute yourself. Don't get triggered. How are you able to read that in my Japanese? Yes. If you guys don't know, I'm a unofficial translator from Japanese to English, FGO. I help you guys with every live stream you can. Holy fuck, can I get like a smoother fucking OST? God damn, bro. Can I get a playlist of non-copyrighted music? Copyright background music? Yes, please. Yeah, give me all those background, non-copyrighted background music. I'll take it, because fucking ain't. What do you think about Artoria being the Grand Saber theory? It is a possibility. I think she has a title of the Grand, but what people need to understand is that probably male Arthur, aka Arthur Prototype, is Grand Saber versus Artoria, who's the female Arthur, having a candidate to become a Saber Grand. A lot of people want OG Artoria to be the Grand Saber, but technically, if you understand the wording correctly, Artoria is a Grand Saber. But there was no specifically been told which Artoria. Means that there is a possibility that a male prototype Artoria is a Grand Saber and not the OG Artoria, specifically due to the sheer fact that the reason why Proto Arthur was born and came to our Claudia was in order to stop B6 from happening. Because he knew and he knows for a fact that B6 will arrive in FGO someday, somehow, and he is specifically summoned to eradicate that threat. Am I safe to return? No, sir. No, sir. Go back. Go back. We're still Omega NA spoilers. This is still spoiler for LB5. Be careful. There are Earth's extreme defense force, summoned only in dire times to take out a major threat. Yes. And then, yeah, Juan, if you don't know, I can read Japanese. I'm half Japanese. I'm not a perfect reader, but I know enough to translate to you guys. What do you think about Musashi become a Grand Saber? She is a interesting outfit for sure. Just because for some odd reason she is one of the few sabers that can phase in and out of existence. Um, to do something. I don't know why. Apparently, she mastered the technique of phasing, and I think what it is that I think she phased into Shimosa, and then she phased back out to Olympus, which is interesting. Because if you think of LB5 scenario and what she has said, and reread Shimosa, it would make sense. Or even read LB1, it would make sense. Because what it could happen was she went from LB5 to LB1, LB1 to Shimosa, into Olympus. Because if you don't know, for some odd reason, the Musashi that we know has a random phasing ability. Whenever she phases, she goes to an alternative timeline, alternative reality, somewhere completely different than she wants. She can't control it, but apparently she knows how to activate it now. So, she might have gone to the, whatchamacallit. What she could have done is the following. She could have phased into a Summer 4. She could have phased into Summer 3. She could have phased into LB1. She could have phased into Shimosa. And then she could have phased into Olympus. There are multiple grand candidates, but they can be only grand of that class at a time. Yes, you are completely correct. There will be multiple candidates, but the official classing will be one at a time. And it looks like it's not permanent, but simultaneously it is to a degree. It's like having a title, and you can't get rid of that title, or even if they revoke that title, it takes a while for them to recharge it. At least. I don't know where you guys getting Caskill or candidate, but possible. Didn't she mention Summer 3 and 4 in LB1? Yes. But that doesn't mean she can't phase backward. I can't remember LB1 because that's just like 2 years ago. I have to actually reread the story. That shit's 2 years ago. I have to reread the story to re-understand what's going on or when that happened. But all you know is she didn't talk much because she phased in right as we were in Crisis. She was more of the hyperplot convenient salutation. So what do you think her timeline is? I think her timeline is the first time. I think her timeline is when we were alive. When we were alive the first time. So right now there is multiple theories that this is a second loop, that this is our second time. Just due to the fact that Lost Room kind of tells us that it feels like this is our second round. Because the Lost Room kind of tries to tie together a first run with the FGO run, which is our run. Because the interesting servant choices that were there at the time was insane. It was weird. Do you think it went from Shimosa, Summer 3, 4, then Olympus? Maybe. It could be. Or, like I've stated before, it could be Olympus to LB1 to Shimosa to 3 to 4, then Olympus. Sorry, Atlantis. It went from Atlantis, Summer 3, Summer 4, LB1, and then Olympus. Possibility. I like didn't hone in on exactly the phrasing that she was writing on, so I don't know yet. LB3 Summer 3 can kind of just be casted aside, just because she kind of just was there as a meme, and she ate udon and then just kind of dipped the fuck out. But other than that, let me go back to the old man, alright? So the old man, or right here, Merlin says, こんな風に手を貸すはない。今回いろんなケースだってほしい。今回はビーストが絡んでいただから、私やキング君が出向けるという、交換条件でもあったし。It says, yeah, rarely, we won't be using these methods, right? Like this was a special case in many ways. So I want you to think of it like that. You can reread this part in Babylonia, after you defeat Tiamat, before everybody leaves. Merlin specifically says, "Hey, don't get your hopes up. It was rare for us to even get involved with, and we were a special case at a special circumstances at that time. And simultaneously, this time a beast was involved." So that's why Mr. King, aka Old Man Hassan, and I were able to dish out or lash out to help. We had a favorable situation on our hand. And then in here, Kama specifically tells you, 勝手に世話を焼きに来る抵抗士の対策もバッチリで誰も残っているわけはなかったんだ。And so Akama specifically right here specifically says, hey, I had everything all set up, requirement all set up, so that stupid counterforce that likes to be so stubborn or likes to look over, was taken care of. This shouldn't have happened, right? Like there was no servant, there was no shenanigans, there was no evil. Everything was done under the dark, without the counterforce knowing. And how the fuck did this happen? Is kind of questioning this whole situation, right? And then Shinjuku during Moriarty, it says, if you were to say, for an example, let's just say a world-ending crisis were to appear. Whenever a world-ending crisis or situation were to appear, a counterforce or something like that is going to hop out of nowhere. Like Moriarty explains what counterforce is in his own deliberate process. But at the same time, if you think about Shinjuku is one of the few places where counterforces were negated. To be perfectly honest, if you think about it now, all the Epic of Remnants, there was no counterforce. There was no grand servants whatsoever. They found a way to get a loophole where a counter servant or a grand servant or a world-ending preventing servant were able to come out because of a specific requirement met, making a counterforce seeing it a deception of not being a world's ending threat. And then this guy specifically make a easier term is just think of it as think of all these think of grand servant as a job title or a worker. You're working working on a office desk, office job in order to protect the world. Everybody's working functionally, and everybody's kind of there as a worker. Emiya, Demia, your boy Ryder, aka alter ego Okita, and Muramasa. This is where it gets interesting, but like I've told you before. And then there are precursored ones that are temporarily contract that can work for the government, or if not, that can work for the job site if they need to, if the company needs help. And then This person, specifically Okitan, the very first Okitan, it says, what do you mean? Me? It says, I'm always constantly in the battle. It says, I think there is a gargantuan big reason for me to be fighting, but probably I've already forgotten what it is. And then she specifically says, it says, well, to be perfectly honest, I'm being turned into a servant here as of now, I guess. And then if you read Fujino's little card, apparently in profile 6, she was a counterforce that failed to save the world. I think? Question mark. Yeah, so the period when Fujino turned to ashes by the incineration of human order. Of the human order. Yeah, the period when Fujino was turned to ashes by the incineration of human order. She was burned to cinder just the same, but the world counterforce did not turn a blind eye to that. The conscience of Aya, for the sake of reversing the incineration of human order, recruited the power of the girl as a war potential, and she was summoned as Claudia as a temporarily servant. Regarding her current self, she is nothing more than a dream, similar to Shiki observed just as before reducing into cinders. She's just an illusion of a single night that will disappear if the incineration of humanity is overturned. While the normal thing to do would have been to fall into panic and confusion, Fujino accepted this abnormal without a trouble. Summoned as a servant, she understands her position precisely, and it seems she will do her best to be Master's power to the extent that she is capable of. Which is quite interesting too. It says, there was a period when Fujino was turned into ash by the incineration of human order. Right? Boom. See, I love it when it's already pre-translated, so I don't have to translate that gigaton text. That's a feels good man sometimes. But essentially, in page 2, Old Man Hassan. Why did Old Man Hassan go on our side? He was with us. Why did he do that? Why did he throw away the contract with the counterforce? And then from the description, there seems to be that even if you become a Grand Class, the counterforce cannot completely control the will of that person, meaning that there is a freedom in becoming a counterforce or not. 死の実装にせ第一宝具にせよペナルティを得した上で一人の人を人悪を倒すのに一人のグランドサーベントを犠牲にしてはコスパが悪い。So essentially, boom. So essentially right here it says it's against Grand Beast. Like it is a oh shoot. Funny, thank you so much for the host. Appreciate you. This is a spoiler. Is Muramasa counterforce? We don't know. We don't know. It is an alter ego. He is a part of an alter ego. We don't know if he's part of the counterforce. It is interesting that he came in. Everybody in FGO low-key knew that he was going to be in the story. Just because ever since LB5, starting of LB5, everything started to look interesting. Because if you re-look at Epic of Remnant, all the topics, all the stuff, all the important details, all the background explanations, essentially all the story in Epic of Remnant is being crammed into all the Lost Belt in their own specific way, which is fascinating. If you were to look back all the Lost Belt and you replay Epic of Remnant, it is fascinating. How you doing, Funny? Thank you so much, man. Hopefully you are not gonna get triggered by spoilers. Isn't Napoleon a counterforce? I think he had the title, if I remember correctly. I think he was a potential to be a counterforce, but he deliberately ignored it. So essentially, it says, "Why did Old Man sided with Cloudy? If you were to side with the counterforce, you needed to bind with the Why did he disobey the contract? That it seems that even if as a grand class, even if its title being stripped, there are some things that counterforce cannot control of a person or what they do. But at the same time, in order to deliver death and activate the first noble phantasm of costing to save one person and defeat one evil against humanity, to lose a grand heroic servant is indeed a bad consumption rate. At this rate, it's gonna be a bad consumption, right?" And it says Beast can only be seen if a beast is born, or if a beast can be born once a grand is known. We still don't know that. And Old Man Hassan understands that he was being a grand, but his original goal is, and his original existence, he prioritized that than being a grand. His goal is to give life to those that were to die. Essentially, he is a white knight to the death that don't need death, which is us. We were supposed to die, but we didn't because of the help of the Old Man. So since he prioritized it, his title of Grand Assassin was stripped away, or Grand Servant was stripped away. But he has no bother. He did not care. Merlin specifically says it's wishy-washy the way he says it. It's very confusing because of this fuckboy words it weirdly, right? He says, technically, if I were to die, I would be a grand servant if I were to summon. If I were to be resummoned by the counterfeit. But I'm not dead, therefore I'm not a servant. I have the right to become a grand servant. And if he were to turn into a servant due to unknown degree, he can grant and obtain himself the title of grand and become a servant. Don't worry about what Merlin says. What he says is asinine and bullshit. He's just throwing confusion at us, so ignore him. Now, understand that Archer Guild and Cast Guild denies the fact that they denied being the Grand, both Caster and Archer. But they are candidates. Because they needed to make sure that he is the judgment, or he is one of a person who judges humanity with its own existence, not by some other counterforce's existence. Meaning that he has denied or had played any role. Yeah, he denied any role of becoming incinerated by humanity or anything that goes against humanity for humanity. And then this fuckboy cock wizard specifically says, "Hey, I'm your elder. I'm your brother. I'm your big brother, Grandcaster Merlin. I'm the mage within a mage." It says, "What the hell? And you came in as a servant. That the sheer fact until the world ends, you cannot die. That the sheer fact that Grand Magician is existence." What? And then Gilgamesh at the very end, specifically right here, if you go and defeat King of Humans, he specifically says, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know much about Beast, because I do not have the title of Grand after all. And then Merlin, specifically during the times where we walk around the wall interior, talks about how Gilgamesh and Merlin are alike. It says first, he and I don't really love humans anyway. We don't care. Gilgamesh is trying to deliberately decide if humans, he's literally deliberately a judger who decides what's good and right in fair use way. So, he will protect humanity, but he will not personally do things for humanity. And Merlin, on the other hand, is just an observer. He is not going to become our friend anytime soon. And it says, not for humanity, not for personally, well, it'll end up because of my own volition. And then Kinoko specifically talks about, in order to specifically join the Claudia side, and in order to join Claudia's side, each and one of them servants have to give up the title of Grand in order to rescue, rescue the entire side of humanity. In order that essentially the title of Grand means that he's going to save all of humanity. Humanity in general. Humans in general. The reason why Old Man Hassan has thrown away the title of Grand was he specifically sided for us, meaning that he sided against our timeline and our reality versus the quote-unquote humanity's reality. But right here specifically says, even though if you lose the title and throw them away, Old Man Hassan, his basic saint graph is naturally strong as a grand class already as it is. Even if he were to throw away the title of Grand and become a normal assassin, just because of that, it doesn't mean his strength will be lowered or deteriorate any inch. 優れた戦力学を全て使っての真の概念の問い付けとなります。ティアマットの死を教えたことで、山直さんの祈祷は普通のサーベントたちと同じ出力と思えになります。Okay, so essentially, simultaneously with a grand servant's, with the grand servant's ability or grand servant's saint graph, using all of it, able to grant the conscious or the concept of death to Tiamat and teaching Tiamat the concept of death. Therefore, his saint graph has become the same output as a regular servant, just because he has fulfilled the job of what he needed to do as his personal self and as a goal in general. So therefore, he did have the saint graph of a grand, but him telling Tiamat the concept of death, he became the same output of the same servant. So that's kind of the reason why Old Man is allowed to become a servant, because he still has the grand body, used most of its power to give Tiamat the concept of death. We're going to read the summary of Epic of Remnant. I have skipped all the dialogue. Jesus. You can technically look back at it through your material. Yeah, reread it in your My. Except for my Merlin and friend. Explain why and Merlin are both broken then. Yeah, any questions so far? And then here. And then there, this is the question that he comes up with too. That, to be perfectly honest, if you were to solo Old Man against Tiamat, can that person win against Tiamat in general in the first place? because the battle was a very close to the very end. At the sheer fact that we needed Gilgamesh's rescue, simultaneously Gilgamesh's bullshit, and even with that, it was a close to hairpin battle against a fully fleshed out beast. Can a grand servant itself can really protect humanity by itself? Correct. And so, old man specifically says,二柱の女神による身体目の足止め、ウルクを餌にした冥界への落とし穴、天の鎖による契約、バインド、名約のより刑罰、懲罰、そして私の綺麗なだけの花。リツカ・藤丸くん、そして英雄たちよ、ここまでいるまで実に多くの手を尽くしてきた。だがまだ足りない。我はまだ、いや、あれはまだ恐怖を知らない。天敵を知らない。彼という死を知らない。And then specifically what he's explaining to us is that the two goddesses, Ishtar and Reshkagul, has created a trap hole for the underground, feeding Uruk as bait, using the heavenly chain as a binding force and punishment of the underground's rule. And what's left is my beautiful flower. Right? What's left is a beautiful flower means that it is just him standing there pretty. And then he specifically says protect and every other servant. You've done and used many tactics up to this far, but it is not enough. Meaning that, like, you know, Gotogon did its best to try to bind it. Quetz and Jagaman was just fighting off as much as they can. And then it says, but it's still not enough. That thing does not know fear. It does not know what a predator is. It does not know he who is called death. Does not know what that means. And then Gilgamesh comes in, it says, hey, if a long battle's impossible, all we need to do is finish it within one blow. Are you unsatisfied with your firepower? If that's the case, then there is no option. I will lend you a hand. And then that's when Caskill became Archer. And then it says, Dr. Roman specifically talks about it's going to be a reverse theory, but as long as there is life form on Earth or life form on the surface side, Beast 2 cannot be granted her death. And then it says specifically here, Old Man Hassan, it says, I hear from the ghost, blah, 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 come here to obtain, give death, reach the concept of the Dark Death itself, Old Man Hassan, Basa Harban. I have to translate all this shit. それ大宇宙で大魔王であるラーマのミッションで宇宙の力を手に入れた神道理、宇宙とつながった欲望の大魔王が宇宙とつながった愛の神に等しく最悪最明。カーマは愛と欲望の地球チェーンのトイレとなっている勇士になった。されば人を滅ぼす未熟とするのは知覚は十分。So, it says to explain what Kama is. I'm more lost than Lost Belt. Don't worry about it. So Grand Hassan beat Tiamat? We don't know. That's the big question, right? Because right here specifically says that can a Grand Servant alone beat can a Grand Servant alone beat a beast in the first place? Because Old Man Hassan constantly told us that it's not enough, not enough. And so Gilgamesh turned from caster to archer, technically due to the fact that the authorities of the underground world that Ereshkigal permitted for him to get his original strength back by pulling out whatever the fuck he needed from whatever X, Y, and Z, TLDR, hyperplot convenient, and says, hey, if we can't do a long-lasting battle, let's give it in one go. It seems that you're worried about firepower. If that's the case, I will lend you a hand. Meaning that, in theory, Old Man Hassan himself cannot defeat the beast by himself. But after Gilgamesh's help and everybody binding, then, with him plus Gilgamesh plus all of us combined, was finally able to give death with the entire Saint Graph energy of Old Man Hassan's title of Grand to Tiamat. Was we able to defeat Tiamat in general? Essentially, to TLDR this, essentially Kama, Kama, aka Mara, they both got connected because Mara was the greed that connected to space. Demon Lord that was greeded, that was able to connect to its space-time continuum, and a goddess that has connected with love. Goddess of love that has connected with space itself, combined both greed and love for all that can connect and fill the entire space spectrum. That, if that is the case, it has enough requirement, enough title to become or to cultivate itself as a beast to eradicate humanity. And then it specifically says she is one of the 7 beasts. She is the selfless, aka she is the lustless one. Beast 3R was able to be born. In order to counteract that, she made a beast. しかし同じ愛情を自分が全て愛に与える、すなわち全ての愛を奪うというビーストの幼女をして、ここは So, instead of Kiara's method of every love gets pointed towards her, she went the exact opposite direction, but the same concept. Instead of receiving all the love to her, she herself made sure that she gives all the love to everything else. Therefore, everything from the present, past, and the future, she would give love. Therefore, she is technically stealing love or the opportunity of being loved from everything else, was able to become a miniature young form of a beast and was able to ascend as a beast 3L. At the sheer fact that within the entire space of humanity, one by one, given the persuasion or the delusion of love, by saying, aren't you struggling? I can burn all your struggles away. Her appearance of itself looks like a deity, and then the one who smiles upon thee can definitely be described as a demon lord or a Buddha's worst enemy. That the sheer fact that her class was already decided in the first place. She is a god. The goddess of love is just only a temporarily name. Within it reside a demonic creature within that was to spread threat to humanity itself. And that name was Beast 3L. Within the seven deadly threat to humanity, other side of lustfulness or pleasure or being loved. A beast that has the right to do that. 本来ゲーしてから栄養はなすく力を一つにぶつける。こういうかもしれないので、一匹のビーストをリンチする作戦かもしれない。優れた全ての霊障を使って死に概念の群数で与えるのはどけだかそこまで必要があったということはあろうか。カルデアが語りしない本来のビーストなんて見ても相手のものだ。 So essentially, to answer your question too, right? Like, who said Bakasama-kun, right? Bakasama-kun, you supposedly said, can old Grand Hassan beat Tiamat? There might be a possibility that the Grand Servant summoning was seven strength were to beat the shit out of one. From Saber, Archer, Lancer, Rider, Caster, Assassin, and Berserker, all 7 Grand Servants were supposed to lynch, if not bully the shit out of one beast. Maybe it was the plan. That was the very plan all along. Because there was only one Grand Servant that could give the concept of death, they needed to make sure that everything that, the protag and the others do was a necessary thing is another possibility. Because what you definitely saw was during that time, you can definitely see during the beast fight, it was the same or similar in general. And then Anderson says it in one during London or somewhere else. It says this summoning, this Grand Servant summoning or AKA regular summoning was supposed to be started as 7 power, striking a blow to one thing. It was a ritual of some sort. Apparently, against one gigantic enemy, they will bring in the 7 humanity's strongest servants to get rid of the problem. That was the situation at hand. But for an example, to bring in this system and able to bring in a regular, このシステムは元になった業務のナルスは一体どれほどの責を与えられていたのか。Then Anderson questions, and then that the sheer fact that the servant summoning system, if they were called to us as a regular servant, meaning that originated from the Grand 7 summoning servant, how much of the Saint Graph will be given to that servant, depending on their structure. Now, understand this. That's not Solomon, but at the same time, this person specifically says, which is Gaetia in the end, says, name is Solomon. Within countless amount of heroic experience, he is one of the 7 grands that were to reach one of the corners of the world. Understand that. So meaning that Solomon is a Grand Servant candidate. And then simultaneously, Holmes also talk about that during Sin, it says, during the talk and the fight against Lelouch, aka Chin, aka your boy first emperor ruler, says, there's something that needs to be more surprising and be spectacle/baffled about. His Saint Graph is not strong, but very high. Oh shit. Oh my goodness. I made Blake best Blake. Oh. Have you heard the theory of a Grand being a servant of LB7? If that's the case, do you think that we may have an option of pairing and summoning a beast, since we technically the bad guys in the LB? Now, you might think so too, right? How about if I tell you that we might tag up with a beast earlier than that for, say, like an Olympus? Wasn't Hassan not grand when he put on the concept of death on Tiamat? He gave up the title, but he still had the Saint Graph of a Grand Servant because he wasn't unsummoned. So he had the Saint Graph of a Grand Servant, was able to put the concept of death to Tiamat, losing the Saint Graph of the Grand Servant, able to come back as a regular servant. You understand what that is, Denny? Just because you give it up doesn't mean you instantly lose the power. It just means that when you get unsummoned, you just don't get the Grand's title, which is the Grand's offerings, blessings, powers, strengths in you. Meaning that during the time he revoked his status as a grand, he still had the body, affection, blessing, strength of a grand. That's why he was 10-10-10 when you used him as a support.